Hello and welcome to Reaching for the Moon, presented by Everglades Moon Local Council, Florida chapter of Covenant of the Goddess. COG supports individual works by its covens, members, and local councils. It's a vibrant network of a myriad of Wiccan and witchy resources, religious support, friendships, service opportunities, and more. To find out more, visit our website, emlc.net, our Facebook page, facebook.com/EvergladesMoon, or Twitter @EMLC_tweets.
Hello everyone, this is Lady Bridget, High Priestess of Witch and Famous Coven in Tamarack, Florida, former National Second Officer, former National Membership Officer, former Local Council First Officer, Local Council Membership Officer, and a few other gigs that I just can't remember. I'd like to welcome you to episode 26 for Samhain 2016. We're going to start out with a song called Shadow by Ginger Doss from her album, The Cocoon. You can learn more about Ginger Doss and buy her music at gingerdoss.com. That's GINGERDOSS.com. Afterwards, we're going to follow that with FooDoo with Qabal making Italian sausage bread. Pandie's Pagan Projects is back with a witch hat door decoration. Sounds so cute. Can't wait to make it. Next, we'll have a song, Blood Moon, by Mama Gina from her album, Solitaire. You can learn more about Mama Gina and purchase her music at mamagina.com, MAMAGINA.com. After that, Lord Riekin gives us his segment, It'll Grow on You, and he's going to teach us how to make essential oil mosquito repellent. Then we have Shaylee with Nice Witch. She's going to discuss what about potluck? The perennial question, what should I bring to feast? And then we'll end up our episode this Sabbath with the song The Wild Hunt by Emerald Rose from their album Sunwise. You can learn more about Emerald Rose and purchase their music at emeraldrose.com, EMERALDROSE.com. Sad note, Emerald Rose has announced that they are no longer going to stay together as a band. So if you love their music, I wouldn't hesitate, because who knows how much longer all of these albums will be available. Hopefully for many years to come, but you never know. That is our podcast, and the podcast this month is brought to you by Turning the Tides, Everglades Moon's annual Turning the Tides Festival Camping event. And there'll be more information about that later on in the show. Enjoy!
Morning, and the sky is still dark. I look up in my shadow, you're staring back at me. Shadow, and how must I wait? And how long will it take to heal? Winter wind is ripping through my heart. I'm rearranging the way I put things down. Oh God, and how bad will it hurt? And how hard will it be? sleep tonight. The pain is melting into trees. I can look into you like I look into a mirror, and the more I do, the more I see myself clearer. And consuming us has buried us in a moment in time. And when they dig us out, we'll try to figure out what was ever on our mind in that time. Morning, and the sky is blue light. I look up in my shadow, there's nowhere I can see.
Happy Samhain, witches. It's that time of year when we do the happy dance, when we eat candy, when we scare the neighbors over and over again and keep them on their toes and scare them again. It's also that time of year when we want to bake, but don't really want to bake in Florida because there's still that chance that Africa hot weather will come out of nowhere. So for those listening further north, go ahead and send all the shade you want while enjoying the fall weather. And don't forget that winter is coming. Yes, it is. Anyway, I thought we should do a medium bake type of recipe this month. It will give the satisfaction of baking, but not require too much time with the oven on. And I thought it was also high time that I do a shout out to our Italian witches, Ciao Streghe, while honoring the hunter's moon. And to do that, I think we should do an Italian version of sausage bread. Now, before we get started, here's the thing about sausage bread that's really important to understand before we do anything else. This is not a vegetarian recipe, meaning it's not even vegan. So how you handle this, if you think vegans might be partaking, Neapolitan sausage bread or panini napolitani, and if you make bread, don't serve it, and meat fest to shame all others. Now, it's actually not that hard to make, but I will let you know that it's a project. It's going to take a stand mixer. You can make the dough by hand and knead it by hand, but it's going to take a really long time. And the other thing is that you're going to give this a very, very long rise. So the first thing is, let's go over the recipe. Okay, so here's the recipe. We're going to need about 1 1/4 cups of bread flour, 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, a 1/2 cup of cake flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of yeast, and the magic ingredient, 2 tablespoons of lard. We're going to need also 1 1/2 to 1 3/4 cups of water, so we're going to put that aside. Alright, now we're going to dump all the flour together into a stand mixing bowl, and to that we're going to add the lard. Let that completely mix through. Now the science of this is that the lard is actually going to get in the way of gluten formation, so it's going to give a lighter dough, but we're going to still have enough consistency to kind of make it feel like a slightly chewy bread. So we're going to mix that lard in with the flour, and then we're going to add the 1 teaspoon of yeast. Now we're going to start adding water. We're going to add enough water until we see the dough kind of pull away from the side of the mixing bowl. And that's going to tell you that it's about ready. Now turn off the mixer and let that sit for about maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Once those 3 to 5 minutes is up, now it's okay to go ahead and add the salt. What we're doing is that we're letting that yeast kind of incorporate and giving it a chance to grow before we're going to add salt. That's going to retard a little bit of that yeast growth. All right, now the next thing, we're going to turn on the mixer and you're going to let that mixer go for 5 to 7 minutes. That's going to fully hydrate the flour, and we're going to know that our dough is done when it kind of sticks a little bit to the bottom of the mixing bowl and sort of pulls away as the dough hook comes through. Oh, you know what? I should have said a dough hook. Dough hook would help a lot. If you don't have a dough hook, you could use a paddle mixer, but the dough hook is going to help here. Anyway, back to the dough. Once that it starts pulling away, then we should have enough gluten structure for it to rise. All right, now pour the dough out. It's going to be a little sticky, so you might want to flour your board first. Pour the dough out and knead it a little bit, because you can't get away with not kneading it. That's always nice. And knead it until you can get a nice ball from it. Now, put that in a separate bowl. Spray it a little bit with nonstick spray, and then cover it with plastic wrap and possibly a wet kitchen towel or a slightly moist kitchen towel, and put that in the refrigerator and let that rise for 24 to 36 hours. Just let it sit there, don't touch it, don't even look at it. After the rise time is done, what this is going to do is develop a great amount of flavor. Pour the dough out again onto a floured board and cut it in half. Now take that half, roll it out into a rectangle shape that's about 18 inches long by maybe about 10 or 12 inches in width. And once you have that, then put any kind of sausage in there. Now the best thing is to put in some mortadella, some dried sausages, and even some cooked Italian sausage. It's really whatever you want. Even cooked Italian sausage by itself will make a great sausage bread. And to that also add about a quarter pound of mozzarella that's been cut into the same size chunks as the sausage that have gone in there. If you use crumbled Italian sausage, just break up the mozzarella into tiny little pieces and pour that mozzarella and sausage mix onto the dough. Now, lengthwise, roll up the dough and cut it into about 2-inch slices. Put those slices onto a parchment paper, and a parchment paper that's on a cookie sheet, and let them rise about 2 hours. Now after those 2 hours, and once that they've basically doubled in volume, now you're ready to cook, or rather put it in the oven. Turn on the oven and preheat it to 350 degrees, and after the oven, a little sound comes on saying it's 350 degrees, wait another 10 to 15 minutes to make sure that the oven has had enough time for a consistent oven temperature to be ready. Okay, before the bread goes in, we want to give them a good basting of olive oil, and then they go in the oven for about 30 minutes. You'll notice that they're done when they turn golden brown and the cheese starts to kind of ooze out a little bit. At that point, take them out of the oven and let them cool a few minutes, and you are ready to dig in. They will keep about a day or so, but you probably won't have to worry. This is a great little snack to make before you go trick-or-treating, and it's just a great little snack to have around. Now, the calorie count on this is magically removed if you make them for Samhain and you start the preparation the day before and it crosses at midnight. Don't forget to leave a little bit for the ancestors. Buona feste. Happy Samhain.
Happy Hallows, everyone! This is Pandie with another edition of Pandie's Pagan Projects. Today we're going to be making an absolutely wicked decoration that you can hang on your front door, on a wall, or any place that needs to be witched up a bit. It's a witch's hat turned upside down and stuffed with the very best of Halloween. You may have seen versions of this floating around on Facebook and Pinterest. Our instructions come from the site thesporesaremultiplying.com, and we'll link to them on our podcast page. To do this project, you will need a witch's hat, a flat back hanging basket, which you can pick up either online or at Joann's or possibly even your dollar store. You'll also need some fake flowers, berries, and other festive floral items. And there are truly some fabulous items right now at Michael's in their floral section just waiting for you to Halloween up your house. You'll need a glue gun, ribbons, some accessories like rats, spiders, and snakes, scissors or wire cutters, floral wire, a wreath hanger, and tissue or stuffing. First, you'll start out by cutting off half the brim of the hat. Since this will be lying flat against the door or wall, you'll want to take off some of the brim so that it'll lay flat. If your hat has a wired brim, you may need wire cutters to use on your brim to avoid destroying your scissors. Next, place the flat-backed basket in the hat, making sure that the flat part lines up with your cut brim. Hot glue the hat to the top of the basket at this point. If you can't find a basket, you can also use maybe some green floral foam or even just tissue paper. Now hot glue a loop of ribbon to the back of the basket or the back of your hat so that you'll have a way to hang it later. And now it's time for fun. We get to decorate our hat and stuff it with Halloween. You can decorate your hat with some colorful ribbons, hot glue some spiders and other goodies on it, witch it up. Then start filling your hat with your flowers and other accessories. You may need to trim the stems of the flowers or use floral wire to hold them in place. Once you've got your flowers and other items the way you want them, you can then add other creepy things like spiders and rats. And that's it. You can go crazy and maybe even add a strand of those awesome battery-powered fairy lights or glitter or anything else you want to your hat. I would love to see pictures of what you guys make. Post them to us on our website or on our Facebook so we can see your creations. Happy Hallows!
That was pretty cool. I think I'm going to have to try making that. Next up, the song by Mama Gina called Blood Moon from her album Solitaire.
Crimson moon in a crystal clear sky. Dogwood blooms like snow on her limbs. Mother Moon asks me, what is your wish, child? And I say, I don't know where to begin. I wanna be more than I am without losing my soul. I wanna bend like that willow. I wanna be harder than stone. I wanna dance in the rain from the tears in my eyes. I wanna sing down this blood moon tonight. Crimson moon shining on the cold earth at my feet. Waterfalls melts away a stone. Mother Moon asks me, what will your wish be? And I say, can I have more than one? I wanna be brave when I'm frightened and humbled when I'm wrong. I wanna love sweet, I wanna speak truth, I wanna be strong. I wanna be darker than shadow and brighter than light. I wanna sing down this blood moon tonight. I wanna be more than I am without losing my soul. I wanna bend like that willow. I wanna be harder than stone. I wanna dance in the rain from the tears in my eyes. I wanna sing down this blood moon tonight. I wanna pray for the right prayer. I wanna stand in her light. I wanna sing down this blood moon tonight. I wanna soul dive so deep. I wanna give this love right. I wanna sing down this blood moon. I wanna sing down this blood moon. I wanna sing down this blood moon tonight.
This is Lady Bridget, and I'm here with Lord Riekin, and it occurs to me that I have been remiss in not introducing Lord Riekin properly. So to those of you who have been listening to the podcast for quite a while, some of you may know him, and many of you may not. But Lord Riekin has a degree in forestry that you got from Louisiana
State University.
And you also have certifications in several fields, don't you?
As well as being a forester, I'm also an International Society of Arboriculture certified arborist. I'm also a State of Florida certified landscape inspector. Landscape Inspectors Association of Florida certified. July of next year, I'll have 40 years in the tree care industry in South Florida. And I was in the tree care industry years before I came down here. What I do for a living now is I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I enforce tree abuse codes and make people plant trees back when they take them out from places they shouldn't take them out from. And when they abuse them, I make them fix them or replace them. I'm constantly going to seminars and training. And I will be at perhaps my 4th seminar on the Aedes aegypti mosquito and the current virus epidemic next week.
Which kind of brings us to our topic. I had asked Lord Riekin kind of broach the subject of the Zika virus and mosquitoes and mosquito repellent and how to maybe protect ourselves a little better. I know we had touched on it lightly last podcast when we were talking about the bees, because I had a concern, and probably other people did too, that the spraying was going to harm the bees. And we discussed that, but what we didn't really get into, and I thought it might be a timely topic to go over, because so many of us as pagans, we want to honor life and we want to honor the earth, but we really don't want to get Zika. And we don't want our kids or our grandkids or other people that we know, because it is so dangerous, especially for women. Can you tell us what are some of the ways that we can protect ourselves from mosquitoes without using really harmful pesticides or insecticides that are going to hurt other insects and other animals?
Well, the topic of tonight's conversation is going to be homemade natural mosquito repellents. But before we go into that, I guess I might bring up the fact that the Aedes aegypti mosquito particularly rarely flies more than a few hundred feet from where they were hatched. Oh. So one effective way that you can protect yourself is to do what they're telling you. Drain all standing water. Aedes aegypti mosquitoes can breed in a single cap full of water. They have an interesting life cycle. I didn't bother to look it up in here, but I've been to enough of these things to know. The Aedes aegypti mosquito particularly lays its eggs in these smaller amounts of water. They lay them at the water line, and then the water has to dry up. The mosquito larvae are on the side of whatever the container is. They dehydrate, And then when it rains again and the water level comes back out, they rehydrate, and that's when they become wrigglers, and in a few days they become mosquitoes. It is necessary. An area where water is constantly standing at the same level doesn't breed the mosquito. It's only bred when it has a good fluctuation in water levels. So the smaller the area, the quicker and faster the fluctuation. Try to be aware that good maintenance habits in your yard, not letting water stand in anything, is one of the best ways to keep the mosquitoes from right around your own yard.
So flower pots and the lids of maybe your trash can if they're indented.
Well, it's interesting enough, you might think, talking about the lids and such, all kinds of lids, 5-gallon bucket lids, they all have little recesses on the inside of them. If you have a 5-gallon bucket with a lid on it turned upside down, or a regular bucket turned upside down, what's good maintenance? Well, you turn your bucket upside down. Look at the blue bucket you've probably got out by your back door or whatever. It's got a curled rim on it, but that's not a solid rim. It's hollow on the underside. If you leave that bucket turned upside down, I'm doing the right thing. The bucket's upside down. It's not getting rain in it. Well, you've got a ring of water where that curled lip is. And that ring of water can generate you a few thousand mosquitoes every 3 to 4 days.
Ew.
You know.
So don't leave it out.
Don't leave it out. Try to, pay particular attention. If you pick up something you think is dry and it splashes water on you, look and see why. Because it usually means that there was some sort of cupping of water going on in there. And, it's not a good thing. I like to leave buckets out to catch rainwater. Surely I do. But if I look down in that bucket of rainwater and I see some little wrigglers, I go right ahead and pour some liquid fertilizer in it and go around and water some plants and put it out there for the next cycle before they have a chance to start breeding more little mosquitoes in there. It's okay to put water, put your buckets out to catch water off the roof, but be careful about it. But at any rate, what we're really here today is to talk about homemade mosquito repellents. Now, I will start this conversation with the fact that I go to seminars with the person who is in charge in the state of Florida with mosquito control and have been doing all the research, particularly into the Aedes aegypti mosquito. And they will tell you that the state of Florida has done extensive testing of all kinds of natural, over-the-counter insect natural repellents, along with DEET and all the other stuff. And they have basically found that everything is the same except for DEET. DEET is 10 times more useful than anything else. Most of the stuff either seems to have actually zero effect or a very limited effect for a very short time. And the only thing that does last long term is DEET. I have not found that to be my personal experience, nor have thousands and thousands of other people. They have found very good insect repellent properties using a variety of essential oils. I'm not a big fan of DEET. I'm sorry, but
I don't think a lot of people that I know are big fans of DEET unless you're, out in the deep woods and you have, don't have access to anything else. It's probably not a good idea to use it.
Well, if you remember a few months ago, we were kind of in the deep woods, as it were. We were hiking some trails at a state park that was in the Florida Everglades, and our natural stuff was not cutting it, and we did have to resort to using some DEET spray to get what we needed. Yeah, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. You either retreat or you use the right weapon for the territory. But if you're in the backyard or just enjoying yourself, at a state park, then you can probably get away with just using a pleasant, homemade or purchased natural essential oil repellent. So I didn't know a lot about essential oil repellents. I mean, we've been making them for years ourselves, but basically right along the lines of a simple. We'll heat up coconut oil, we've heated up mineral oil, we've heated up, help me out here.
Beeswax.
Well, the beeswax is a component.
Right.
Okay, here's one thing. You do have to understand what it is you're going to use your repellent for. We tend to make salves that you rub on your skin, but people also need to have sprays that they can spray on their clothing, because in a lot of cases it's a lot more effective if you're using cotton as your clothing to spray it on your clothing. You may not want to spray these natural essential oils on a lot of artificial materials, because you either permanently stain them or dissolve them. So
Wow.
not really a good thing. So you do have to remember that. That's an easy switch to make. I'll go into it, but you can either prepare yourself a salve using whatever oil you want, plus whatever base oil you want, what essential oil you want, and some beeswax to make a salve.
Now, we have experimented with
Quite a
coconut oil, jojoba oil, and mineral oil. And out of the three, I liked the coconut oil the best, but I think you liked...
We also used olive oil, dear.
Oh, and olive oil. Which one did you like the best? I think you liked the mineral oil the best.
I like the mineral oil, yeah.
Yeah, we both found that the jojoba oil is really expensive to use, and I didn't find that it had any better properties. I liked the coconut oil because I liked the way it spread.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I liked the mineral oil because it didn't have any scent. And you know me, I don't like much in the way of scents if I can get around it.
Right.
Didn't like the olive oil. Olive oil worked fine to start with, but it had a tendency to go rancid after a year or two. It started smelling a little bit off after just a couple of months.
Yeah, well, it depends on how hot it is.
Well, this is South Florida.
It's hot.
There's no way around it. I recently looked at a map prepared by a Canadian about the best areas to live, and there's a zone across the northern United States and the southern part of Canada that said livable, and Southern California and Florida were both designated as hell on earth, dead zone. But convince all the Canadians that come down here in the winter of that. I don't know.
Well, it really depends on the time of year. My plan for retirement is to become a snowbird. that is my goal.
Okay, but let's get into this now. We have about 176 native species of mosquito in this country. The Aedes aegypti is not one of the native ones, but he is native now. There's nothing you can do about it. They are just very, very well adapted to our environmental conditions in the southern United States.
So is this the only type of mosquito that carries the Zika virus?
No, 3 or 4 can, but none of them are nearly as efficient at it as the Aedes aegypti.
Okay, so it's not every mosquito that you have to be worried about.
No, by no means. Most mosquitoes cannot carry the Zika virus. And by the way, we're talking about Zika here, but again, we're in South Florida. Dengue fever is endemic down here, and even chikungunya fever. I've never known anyone personally who had dengue or chikungunya, but we have friends who have caught dengue fever.
And Nile virus. West Nile virus as well. West Nile virus
nearly killed her. Actually, two friends who nearly died from misdiagnosed viruses brought in from out of the country with mosquito-borne.
So it's a lot of diseases that mosquitoes can carry.
I'm actually going to cut to the chase here, and I'm going to tell you this now, and I'm going to tell you again at the end. A lot of the information that I have here beyond our own experiments with making salves came from a website called Frugally Sustainable, because after doing some research, this woman's research has been just fantastic, and she's gotten into quite a lot of detail, and I learned more preparing to give this little segment than I knew before by far, and I had a tremendous number of aha moments, and I want to share that with you. So frugallysustainable.com, and her articles and her answers to everybody's questions. Somebody asked her a question she didn't know the answer to. She went out and investigated and researched until she could give them an answer. And it was a fantastic resource. Okay, so let's get into it now. Essential oils. Not all essential oils are created equal. Some have varying degrees of volatility. Some dissipate from the skin faster than others. But the essential oils that are most often suggested are citronella, rose geranium, lemongrass, catnip essential oil, which I'd never heard of, but apparently is one of the top 3, if you can find it, castor oil, peppermint oil, lavender oil, turmeric oil. I didn't even know I had a turmeric oil. I just used turmeric for everything. Cedar oil, a neem oil, which I'm a little puzzled by. They didn't specify. To me, neem oil is a solid, waxy oil that is solid by anything above 53 degrees.
Well, maybe when you mix it with other things.
Well, somebody was using neem oil was saying that they were having some issues with it as well. But as she said, you're usually using this in the summertime outside. It's usually not an issue. If you're having an issue, put it in a bath of warm water and shake it some. And rosemary oil, and then lemon eucalyptus. But lemon eucalyptus is one of the most useful ones, apparently, but the words here are deceptive. If you're buying a blend of lemon oil and eucalyptus oil, yeah, those are both good oils, and they will have some mosquito repellent properties, but nothing like getting the essential oil made from the lemon eucalyptus tree.
Which is not the same thing.
Which is not the same thing as lemon oil plus eucalyptus oil, the eucalyptus oil being from a totally different species than the lemon eucalyptus.
So lemon eucalyptus is totally different from eucalyptus.
Lemon eucalyptus oil is totally different. Make sure you're buying the right product.
Okay.
So you have your essential oil, and you have your carrier oil, which is like grapeseed oil, olive oil, jojoba oil, almond oil. Think about that. What happens if you rub something with almond oil on it and a kid who ends up having a peanut allergy or a nut allergy in
probably
general?
not a good idea.
Be careful, folks.
Yeah.
Use common sense here. Well, I put it on there because he said to. Not necessarily.
Coconut oil.
Yeah, coconut oil, of course. And surprisingly enough, soybean oil. And while you might not have thought of that as being one of the top ones, apparently it is the top one. Because of all the experimenting they did, soybean oil keeps the other oils stable longer, and they evaporate from the skin at a much slower rate. So it
makes sense, because now they're making soybean candles as well.
Oh, true enough.
And they mix the soybean with the beeswax.
Mm-hmm.
So it would make sense to me.
So, if you're going to be making salves, well, at that point, you've got your essential oil, you've got your carrier oil, you throw in some beeswax with that, and you can make a salve that you rub on your skin. But if you want to make a spray that you can put on your clothing and such, then you're going to be using isopropyl alcohol, one form or another.
Is that like rubbing alcohol?
Rubbing alcohol is isopropyl alcohol.
Okay.
You could use actual, Everclear or vodka if you wanted to, but actually you're better off with, you're better off with isopropyl alcohol, and you're better off with your standard 70% rather than 95% stuff that I buy to use for wicks and my little burners and such. Mm-hmm. You can buy 95% isopropyl at Walmart, but you can also buy 70. Buy the 70 because there are some aspects of this stuff that do need a little bit of water to work right, or else they separate too much. Yeah, if you're going to go through a straight-up oil-based spray, or rather
alcohol?
Well, you're going to go through an alcohol-based spray. You can use witch hazel. Not straight-up witch hazel essential, but, you can, right where you buy your rubbing alcohol, you can buy witch hazel, which is witch hazel in rubbing alcohol. Again, 70%. There's water involved too. It's an even better way to go.
Nice.
Okay, and I love witch hazel myself. I know you looked at me odd the first time you saw a bottle of it in there, but I've grown up with witch hazel oil.
Well, witch hazel is also one of the things that they tell you to put on your rash if you end up with shingles. Yes, witch hazel is also one because it's cooling and it helps dry. So it also evaporates quickly.
Yeah, but it also has a nice scent to it, and it's probably one that would repel mosquitoes. Now, one thing about this, though. Lemongrass is supposed to repel mosquitoes. On the other hand, lemongrass is what we use to attract honeybees. Lemongrass oil, essential oil, is what we use to put in the traps to lure honeybees. So, one of the caveats in this article is that everybody has a different mix of mosquitoes where they are. And that you're going to need to mix and match and do a little bit of experimenting and find out what works best for mosquitoes in your area. It's just like we take garlic internally to repel mosquitoes, and it repels almost all mosquitoes, but there's this little tiny, Italian mosquito, I guess, that just doesn't bother them at all.
That's true.
But the good thing is that if you take garlic internally for them, even if they do bite you, you don't get much reaction to it because it seems to blunt or neutralize the reaction if a mosquito bites you.
And red ants as well.
And red ants as well. I find that. True enough.
So people would have to do a little bit of mix and match try one formula. And I would say keep a
keep a log.
Just like you keep a magical diary, you should keep a diary of different things that you've tried. How many parts citronella, how many parts lemongrass, how many parts oil, whether or not you liked it, whether it was spreadable, that kind of thing.
Well,
and
that's
then
just the thing.
How effective was it?
You can use a mix of many, many different essential oils. What matters is once you've made that mix, that you use X amount of the mix to Y amount of the isopropyl alcohol, to make your blend up. So so there's a lot of playing around with it.
And these things are just heated in a regular pan.
There's no heat involved.
On the stove? You don't heat them?
No heat involved.
How do you mix them?
They all mix just fine at room temperature.
The oils, or are you talking about the alcohol?
We're talking about the alcohol mix.
For the alcohol spray, you just mix them at room temperature.
Oh, yes. Okay. If you're going to make, back up. I've mostly focused here on making some of the alcohol spray. So if you're going to back up, if we're going to use the salve, yes, you mix up your salve base in a pot, and after you've taken it off the stove and it's cooled for a little while, then you put in your essential oils and stir, stir, stir. You don't wait for it to get firm, but you do it. Now, how do you know how much beeswax to use to how much base oil? That is a simple experiment. You start with an amount of base oil, soybean oil in this case, let's say, which most of the vegetable oils unspecified at the grocery store, if you look, it'll be 100% soybean. So it's the cheapest thing you're going to buy out there. Unless you're buying something that says corn oil on it. If it merely says vegetable oil, it won't take you too long to find 100% soybean oil. And if you want to be really, really particular about it, you can find very expensive soybean oils that are made from non-GMO and organic and everything else. Not worried about it. But if your baseline oil is going to be soybean, you heat up your soybean oil, you put in some beeswax, maybe 1 part beeswax to 15 parts soybean oil or something like that. You heat it all up. Well, once it all dissolves and you're looking at a liquid in your pan, you take a big pan, hold it in your other hand, you take your spoon, you dribble a couple of drops on the pan that you're holding in your hand. After a few seconds...
A cold pan.
After a few seconds, it hardens up, and you can check it. When it is the consistency that you want. Some people like a softer oil, some people like a harder salve. Whichever you want, you can make it into a really hard salve that you have to kind of rub your finger in and put a little bit around your eyes or whatever. Or you can make it into something sloppy soft and anywhere in between. But you don't have to wait for the batch to cool to figure out what you have. All you have to do is put a couple of drops on a cold frying pan.
And you can test it.
The backside of the frying pan, and in a few seconds you can test it, and you'll have a good idea of just how hard your oil is going to be at room temperature.
Awesome. That's a nice tip.
It's sure saved me a lot of work once I figured that out years ago.
And then when it starts to cool...
It starts to cool, but before it starts to thicken, when you start to see threads in it, strings in it when you're stirring it, that's cool enough. Throw in your essential oils and stir, 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 and you'll be good. If you waited a little bit too long, no problem, just you have to stir a little harder.
But you don't want to really heat the essential oils.
You don't want the essential oils heated.
Okay.
So that's to make a salve. That's best used around your ankles and, on your neck, behind your ears. You don't really want it right on your face. Your forearms are fine. You don't really want the stuff on your hands. But the salves on your ankles are particularly good.
Yeah.
At least that we have found.
Salves on the ankles, on the forearms, around the neck, on the cheeks, around the back of the ears. That's where I like to use them. The other thing is you can keep them in a jar. You can keep them in a tin can. Anything that's airtight. Mm-hmm. And I usually try to reuse small tins. Like if you've bought lip balm in a tin, you can reuse that tin once the lip balm is gone. Or if you don't like the stuff, heat it up, pour it out, and then wipe the tin clean, and then put your mosquito stuff in there. Because having it with you is the most important thing. It doesn't matter if you've made up a whole batch if it's sitting somewhere in the kitchen and that's not where you are when you need it.
True enough. But that's really simple. We've gone through, some of the different oils that could be used for that purpose. So let's just get on to making the spray. It's 1 part essential oil to 10 parts oil if you're using going to make a salve, and it's 1 part essential oil to 10 parts alcohol if you're making a spray.
Oh, okay.
Okay. She has a recipe here that she has found to be very useful. I'll go ahead and tell you what it is. It's 35 drops of citronella, 20 drops of eucalyptus, 15 drops of lemon, 15 drops of lemongrass, and 15 drops of cedar to 4 ounces of the alcohol.
Okay. And you just mix that up
Yeah,
cold.
that's about all those drops together make about a half a teaspoon. And you can put that into the other. Now here's the cool thing. This is the most amazing aha moment I had on this whole study. All these oils evaporate from the skin fairly quickly. They have to be reapplied every couple of hours. But the addition, let's not get into all the elaboration, but the addition of a good quality vanilla extract.
Yeah.
Don't try to go out and find, chemical grade vanillin or anything like that, but any good grade of vanilla extract, natural or artificial, either one works, will greatly extend to almost double the life effectiveness of a spray.
Really?
Yeah.
That is interesting.
It stabilizes and releases the essential oils into the air much more slower basis, much more regular. It isn't a big foof and then you're all gone.
So if you're going to go be out for a few hours, you probably want to add a little bit of vanilla to your
You're going to do it
spray.
anyway because you never know when you're going to be out for a few hours. Don't say if, just add it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. And imitation vanilla, so you don't even have to buy the good stuff.
No. Buy a good imitation.
That's good to know.
Don't go to the dollar store to get your imitation vanilla. Go ahead and pop for the good stuff at Whole Foods Market or something.
Well, if you're buying all of these oils, you're already popping for the good stuff because these are not.
Well, there is that.
Cheap.
I mean, the numbers. She in one of the question and answer parts in her article, she did break that down too. Somebody said, "What's the cost effectiveness of making this stuff at home after you bought all these oils and everything, as opposed to just buying the stuff off the shelf?" Because she does compare her homemade stuff to some they were made to be as nearly like some commercial products as she could manage.
Right.
And she says, well, if you're just making 4 ounces, it's not. But if you buy everything necessary and you make up a 4-ounce batch, you can make up 5 or 6 or 8 of these 4-ounce batches with an ounce of each one of these things.
Right.
And,
So my recommendation would be make this a coven project and have everybody buy an oil and bring it.
It's rock soup.
And everybody, and you make a coven project out of it. Because honestly, yes, you could make 4 to 6 batches, right? Mm-hmm. With the oils, the essential oils that you're purchasing. However, unless you're going to keep them refrigerated, eventually those carrier oils are going to go rancid. So if you're in an area where you only use this 3 or 4 or 5 months a year because you're in an area that has, a colder climate than where we are, then it might not be cost effective unless you're going to spread it out over a bunch of people.
Right.
So if you got 6 people in your coven, make it a coven project, then everybody comes off with one that they can use for that season. And then maybe, next May Day you do it again.
There you go. Now, just to circle back around there, dear, if you're in an area where you only need it for 4 months out of the year, you probably don't have the AGs and gypti.
Oh.
They don't. They're struggling to get up to North Carolina.
Oh, so in other words, this is really a localized problem.
This problem is, I was clear at the beginning that it's the southern United States.
Okay, but you know what? A lot of people do travel to the southern United States.
Well, that's how we got the Zika here. A lot of people traveled elsewhere and then came back here.
Exactly.
Yes. But, good insect repellent is useful wherever you are.
This is true, because it's not just
Zika.
Zika.
Those 126 species I was talking about? They're all in Alaska, other than the Zika.
Really?
Well, not really.
Well,
no,
there's a lot of viruses as we went over.
There's just a lot of mosquitoes in Alaska. An Alaskan will laugh at a South Floridian complaining about mosquitoes.
Yeah, because they even have a festival about it, don't they?
Yes, dear. But at any rate, to break it down, an alcohol-based spray or alcohol witch hazel based spray, which is the way I would go here, you're going to use 25 drops of whatever your essential oil mix is, which comes out to about 1/2 teaspoon. You're going to add to that 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and you're going to add all that to 4 ounces of the isopropyl or witch hazel.
And that can go in a spray bottle.
And that can go in a pretty big spray bottle.
That'll last a family a season.
I think so.
I would think. Yeah.
And you can, if you wish, you can kind of split the difference here. You can use 2 ounces of the rubbing alcohol or witch hazel blend, and you can use 2 ounces of soybean or coconut oil to make a greasier oil that, is better for just rubbing on the skin. But
right.
Again, you're not necessarily going to want to put that on your clothes unless it's just cotton, because the cotton, it'll wash out.
Right.
But this stuff will permanently stain leather, a lot of artificial fabrics
rayon.
And things like that, and rayon, things like that.
Yeah.
You'll never get that ghost of an outline out of it.
Right.
You have to dip the whole thing to make it all look even again, and it doesn't really work too well.
No.
Now for some disclaimers.
Well, before you hit the disclaimers, the other thing I wanted to stress to people is, even if you are not going to make this at home, at least now you have a good idea when you're going out and you're going to some of the markets, some of the organic places that you might want to shop at, and you look at the ingredients. If you don't see these oils as the ingredients, don't bother to buy this product. Or if these oils are not listed like close to the top,
yeah,
because now you know how much of each part there should be. So if you've got a whole bunch of preservatives and then these oils are like at the bottom, then you probably don't have enough in that product to even be effective. Yeah. So at least this arms people with a little more information.
Yeah, well, before I did this research, I would have went catnip. They put catnip oil in this. Why? Well, now I know catnip's one of the best. To go over those oils again: citronella, rose geranium, lemongrass, lemon eucalyptus, not the same thing as lemon plus eucalyptus, catnip essential oil, castor oil, would not do that in a million years, peppermint, lavender, cedar, neem, rosemary, and turmeric. All right. Soybean is probably your best carrier oil overall. If it doesn't have vanillin as one of the ingredients in there somewhere, then it's not going to be as stable.
And it's not going to last on you as long.
Not going to last on you as long. But when you're making these things up, make sure you do some calculations, because you're going to want 5% to no more than 10% essential oil in whatever it is you're making. Because you don't want it, you never use 100% essential oils on your skin.
Yeah.
It will burn. You should always test your oil on a sensitive piece of your skin for 24 hours before you go lathering your stuff with this out in the woods. Wouldn't it be fun to, I made this up last night. Here, let's all put it on. And one of the people who puts it all over them ends up covered with a rash because they end up reacting to one of the oils in there. Use your hands to apply it to your face. Never spray it on your face. Test for safety on clothing. So if you're going to be using these homemade things like this, the same holds true with DEET. DEET will flat out dissolve some plastics and artificial fabrics.
Well, it goes true with anything that you're going to spray on your clothing.
Yeah.
Unless, if you're wearing an old T-shirt, who cares?
This sort of stuff can permanently stain leather and vinyl. You should be careful with children, particularly under the age of 3. They'll lick the stuff off of them. Peppermint. And, while this stuff is reasonably safe, you don't want them ingesting it. And again, I can't say enough about the research and expertise of the lady at frugallysustainable.com. She did a wonderful job with her article, and I didn't find much need to go far beyond that, given what I already knew about doing this stuff. And I don't believe what they say that DEET's the only thing that's really effective, even if it's been independently verified state by state by state. It's like, I choose what I choose to believe.
Well, and I also wonder, I have to think that sometimes the garlic that we're ingesting, and on top of the natural mosquito repellent that we're using, in combination is probably more effective than just using one or just using the other.
Of course.
And I know other people who say, oh, mosquitoes never bite me. And then other people will say, oh, I always get bit by mosquitoes. So I think it's also personal pheromones. Some people are more attractive to buggies than others.
Well, we've seen it in our own family group. There can be 6 people, and only one of them is going to get bit. We just tell them they're sweeter than the rest of us. But one person gets attacked, and it's like, oh, there's our sacrificial victim for the night. And the rest of us go along our merry way while that one person gets a blood sacrifice.
That's just evil. The other thing I wanted to mention in closing is that we also found online these cute little hats. Okay, well, they're not really cute. They're kind of butt ugly. But it's a hat with a wide brim, and it has a mosquito netting that comes down from the brim and then gathers around the neck. It easily goes over the head.
It's meant to keep the no-see-ums off.
Yeah, it's meant to keep everything off.
Yeah.
And it might be really another good option if you have kids and you don't want to be putting this stuff around their face. And they can just wear this hat, put it around their neck, and then all you have to do is put, your repellent on their arms or their clothing or whatever, and it'll keep the bugs off their face. It'll keep the sun out of their eyes. So it'll do double duty. And they were really super cheap.
Oh, yeah. You can pick these things up. Even at Walmart, they're like $2.50.
Yeah, I think it was 2 for $3 or something.
Yeah, we ordered them online, and they're next to nothing.
Yeah, and they're very, very lightweight. So we packed those in our camper for the next time we go on a hike out in the deep woods, and I don't want to get bit by anything. Well,
you don't just have to use the hat. You can also simply buy the mesh by itself. It's like a big mesh sock with, an elastic band at one end. I have one of those actually tucked. I have one of those collapsible cloth hats that has a little pocket up in the crown, and I have one of those tucked into there. And if it got really bad, all I have to do is take my hat off for a moment, pull that thing out of there, pull it over the hat, pull the whole thing over my head, and let it go down to my neck and choke it off, and there you go. At least it'll keep it out of my eyes, nose, and mouth, and that's 90% of the battle.
Yeah, I find it's more annoying to have them flying around my face than it is to have them, anywhere else. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Lord Riekin, for doing that research and getting that information for us.
Well, this was easy because I found this particular website to be so much better than a whole lot of other research that I was doing. I just to the point where it's like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel.
And what was the website again? Give it to us one more time, please.
The website was frugallysustainable.com.
Frugallysustainable.com.
Yes, and it
Perfect.
was how she makes her own homemade non-DEET insect repellents.
Well, thank you very much again, Lord Riekin, for doing all that research for us and finding that great website and for all of your knowledge.
You're very welcome.
Hello, everyone. This is Lady Bridget, and I have a shameless plug for Turning the Tides. Yes, I'm going to do a commercial. Turning the Tides is Everglades Moon Local Council's annual weekend festival and camping event. This is our 10th year. We're so excited to have brought this festival into fruition, manifested it, and this is our 10th year in a row. The theme this year is called Yule in the Twilight, 10 Tides Together. So we're hoping to be able to bring you some of the best of our prior workshops, as well as just bringing our community together here in South Florida. It happens the second weekend in December. This year, in 2016, it's Friday, December 9th through Sunday, December 11th. Mama Gina will be playing at our event. It'll be a small, intimate concert. You won't want to miss it. We really can't give you the location. It is in Miami, but it is at a very sweet little park in Miami. Once you register, you'll get the location. And registration is now open. Go to emlc.net and you will see the registration for Turning the Tides. It is one of the least expensive events you can ever attend because adults are only $55, children $25. And that price is good through November 25th. Starting November 26th, the price goes up to $80 for adults. So you really want to register now. Register early. The camping is actually in cabins. They are bunk beds. There's a limited cabin space available. It is first come, first serve, so please indicate on the registration form if you want to have a cabin or if you want to utilize tent space. Breakfast is provided on Saturday and Sunday. Your registration price gives you admission to all workshops, opening, closing, and main ritual, potluck dinner Saturday night, and there is drumming. What's a pagan festival without drumming? Again, go to emlc.net. Registration is now open. We look forward to sharing sacred space with you in the woods of South Miami. There is no better place to be in December. Who needs an excuse to go to Florida in December? You do. Come to Turning the Tides.
Hello, my name is Shaylee. Welcome to Nice Witch, a Miss Manner segment for all Wiccans, witches, and pagans alike. Today's topic, potluck. For those of you who have never been to a ritual before, it is customary to bring a potluck item for feast after ritual. This is not always the case, but unless you have been told a potluck item is not necessary, a good rule of thumb is to not arrive empty-handed. I know what you're thinking. Well, if I must bring something, I'll be safe with a dessert or bread, right? Wrong. 27 desserts and 5 kinds of bread is not potluck. It's a diabetic nightmare. And if everyone decides to bring the same thing, then our potluck is in trouble. Variety is needed to round out any good potluck. Dessert and breads are good. In fact, they're great, but they're not your only choice. This is good advice for regular potluck takers too. So what can you bring? Well, remember, it's called potluck, not potluck dessert, or potluck bread, or even potluck dish. There are plenty of options for you to bring. For starters, you can always bring appetizers, something to snack on before ritual begins as you wait for everyone to arrive. You can bring cheese, chips and dips, veggies, hummus, or anything else you'd like. If it's a large enough gathering, you can never have too much, even if the host is already providing them. You can also bring drinks, water, wine, beer, juices, lemonades, iced teas, or your own favorite mixed drink, not necessarily alcoholic, are great choices to bring along to any potluck, especially if you're not even sure you're supposed to bring anything. Then there are the side dishes. You can always bring veggies, rice dishes, salads of any kind, or casseroles. Any of these items work well in any potluck and often are the lacking or missing items in most lopsided potlucks. Usually the main dishes are provided by the host or the hosting group, but you can always volunteer out to help out by bringing a main dish. Whether you pick something up or dazzle us with your world-famous dish, providing a main dish is always appreciated. Lastly, yes, of course, you can bring dessert or bread, but as I stated earlier, it's not your only choice. So if you do choose to bring a bread or dessert, perhaps go with variety. Maybe bring your favorite kind, or something with fruit, or you can go with something unique. This way, even if you do end up with an abundance of desserts or breads, at least they won't all be the same. Another good rule of thumb is unless you are asked to, or you're the designated bring the insert potluck item here person, is to vary what you bring to each potluck. So if this time you brought a side dish, next time bring dessert, and so on and so forth. Especially if there's no coordinated effort. This way, at least you're trying to round out the potluck, whether you succeed or not. Speaking of coordinated efforts, you can always offer to coordinate the potluck for your host. Ritual planning can be a handful, and any help is usually appreciated. Another way you can be helpful is if you or a member of your party has special needs, to notify your hosts and to offer to bring something that will work for your dietary needs. Example, if you are a vegan, don't assume that there will be a vegan main dish for you. Bringing one along ensures that you can eat something more than side dishes. In general, it's always best if you have contact with your hosts to ask what they might need. But if you can't, or if there's no potluck organization, just by being aware of your choices, you can help make any potluck fantastic instead of a sugar rush waiting to happen.
So remember, whether we are all gathering to honor the gods, celebrate the seasons, mark the turning of the wheel, perform rituals, simply to enjoy each other's company, or whatever the reason be, we are gathering and we need to be considerate of each other. So enjoy yourselves and remember to be a nice witch.
And before we start our last song of the show, I'd just like to thank all of the people who have written iTunes reviews, who have come onto our webpage and made little comments, who have emailed me with suggestions about how to make the podcast better and what they'd like to hear more of and what they enjoy. Please feel free to go over to emlc.net, leave us a comment on the show. I'd love to hear back from you. And iTunes reviews really help. I can't stress enough how much iTunes relies on reviews by its listeners in order to rate podcasts. And if you haven't written an iTunes review yet, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks and blessed be. Next up, a song by Emerald Rose from their album Sunwise called The Wild Hunt.
Lock the doors, bar the gates, crack your shutters for a glance. But keep your talisman at hand, the wild hunt rides tonight. Whirling leaves around the cairn, horn will sound, the hunt begins. The spectre's howl will freeze your heart. The wild hunt rides tonight. See us ride on the whirling winds, called back from death. We shed our skins to hunt the souls of winter once again. Lightning cracks and ghost hounds bay, none shall bar the huntsman's way. Give the dead their due, or be their prey. Rides across the dusky moor, the heroes of a distant age. The wild hunt rides tonight. Peasants trod upon the road, life shall take a turn tonight. Will you perish, will you rule? The wild hunt rides tonight. See us ride on the whirling